It's starting to feel somewhat unfair that I should be so cursed when it comes to technology, and I've tried everything short of petitioning the gods themselves to relieve my technological curse, although actually maybe I should try that. Sorry mate, it's about the best I can do. Need money for camera gear. So let's pick this up at somewhere around 6 a.m. when I was hiking up a mountain and feeling vaguely optimistic, which was a mistake. You shouldn't ever do that. Never be optimistic. This is a very Welsh scene. Are you handsome? And you're loud. Oh, I can't see much though. It's quite cold up here. It's quite a cold breeze. Oh, there is a stone chap in the bush over here though. Getting a nice pink glow though. Is that the stone chap again? Oh, beautiful. I'm going to be shooting quite a lot here because I'm shooting at a very slow shutter speed. I put leather gloves on this morning because of my previous issues with my woolen gloves getting caught in the joystick of this battery grip. The only downside being that I can't zoom in on the touchscreen. There's definitely a skylark still calling somewhere off to the left, but they're so hard to find when they're on the ground. You really have to get lucky stumbling across them, and I don't like to disturb them because then they get preyed on by things like the kestrel that's around here or the buzzards. I think the stone chats have moved on from this hedge for the moment, so let's just move a little bit closer. See if I can see where they move to. Just get some more sheep shots. That's what everyone wants. Yes, maybe shooting straight into the sun is a poor choice. I tend to prefer backlit photos, though. It's just something kind of interesting about them. Let's shuffle on a little bit. Just saw something. This bloody camera's doing this disconnecting thing again. I wonder if I need to check the mount on this. That's what I'm doing a little bit. So in the distance over there is the city of Cardiff. We're just on the north side of it. I wouldn't describe Cardiff itself as a pretty city, but the thing it has is that it's in the countryside. I've had a shot in the past of a buzzard here that was kind of cool, but it was going the wrong way, and I had it against the backdrop of that village, and that was really cool, but I want it flying towards me like that. It'd be a really, really interesting photograph, because you get such a strange perspective due to the relative height of this place. It's quite high up above the surrounding area. One of the nice things about Fuji as a system is that it's like a midpoint between micro four thirds and full frame, and you do still get some very small lenses. So I have this very tiny 27mm, which is nice because I can stick it in my pocket. And I'm just going to take a photo of my favourite tree, which is just behind me here. This one there. I say favourite, it's the only tree up here. So as a quick note about how I use the X-H2S, I have up till now been recording raw photos to the CF Express Type B card and video to the SD card. This is because you get more video for your storage if you record in H.265, and that can be written to an SD card rather than a CF Express card, unlike if you were shooting ProRes. When it comes to raw photos, you get the highest burst speed or the largest buffer by using a CF Express Type B card. So that's how I have my camera set up. What I hadn't realised at 5 AM, and in my defence, I'm not on my sharpest at 5 AM, was that the camera was not writing to the SD card at all. There's absolutely no footage from the entire morning on this SD card. There's footage from the previous day where it worked seemingly fine, but nothing from the morning on the mountain. But up until this point in time where I was trying to change lens and photograph a tree, everything seemed to be working as normal. I was able to take video and photos and press the play button and go back through them, and they were all seemingly there. But the videos weren't. In hindsight, they weren't written anywhere. The photos, up until now, were being written to the CF Express Type B card, and this is where it starts to go wrong. So I swapped from the 150 to 600 over to the 27mm lens, just so that I could take a crap photo of a tree. And when I put the 27mm lens on, everything seemed to be working. The info screen on the back of the camera was showing the current details. It was showing a live histogram for the light entering the camera. It was showing the currently set aperture on the lens. But when I raised the camera up to my eye, the EVF didn't turn on. And first I thought this was me having used the wrong setting, but no, it was in fact completely stuck. So I tried turning it off, but it wouldn't turn off. It stayed in the same state. And I tried turning it back on and back off again, and the same happened. I tried disengaging the lens and re-engaging it. Same again. So at that point, I figured that the camera must be bugged, and I decided to remove the grip and pop the battery to reset the camera, which didn't work. The camera appeared to now be completely dead and was not even showing anything on the top screen, which was quite worrying. It then got weird because it went back to how it was before. So it got stuck again, and it was showing live details on the rear screen, but it would never do anything else. And then I tried turning it off and it wouldn't work. And this kept going on for a while. And at one point, very briefly, a memory card error appeared on the screen, maybe for half a second or less. And I didn't really think much of it at the time. I just figured it was part of this bug. But in hindsight, it does appear to be the main cause of all of this issue. It just wasn't very obvious at the time. And after a while, the camera started working seemingly fine again. And I took a few photos of this tree, and they are the last photos for the next 2 hours that were actually persisted to either of the memory cards. For the next 2 hours, I spent my time wandering around. I took some very nice photos of stone chats, some skylarks, what I think were wheat ears. Interesting, not seen those around before. And I reviewed these photos. I was taking video seemingly too, but when you swapped between the photo and the video mode, it seemed to lag up and show a kind of in progress icon on the back screen, which is a little bit weird. It doesn't normally do that. But I didn't think too much of it. I just figured that the camera was continuing to act up. But as it turns out, none of these were recorded. Not even the photos. Despite the fact that I was reviewing them, they don't exist. They're not corrupted, they're not hidden, they're not restorable on the memory card. They were never written to the CF Express card. And again, I don't write photos to the SD cards. 2 hours after this started, I finally had the notion to remove the SD card. And this fixed it. And after this point, all the photos are recorded correctly. But why did the SD card being faulty, which I am going to presume is the main issue here, prevent anything else from being written, and from being written to a totally separate memory card? This feels like a fairly critical bug in the X-H2S and its handling of a corrupt file system on one card. I don't personally know exactly how the X-H2S works internally in terms of its software, but I'm going to presume that you can review photos that are currently sat in the buffer before they're written to the card, because I can't see any other way in which I was able to view photos that don't exist, that were never persisted. There is a second issue that I was experiencing during the morning of this filming, where when I use the X-H2S with the 150-600, when I lift the lens with the camera attached, and I usually hold the camera by the tripod foot on the lens, because that's how you're supposed to do it with a longer lens, because you're bearing the weight of the lens and not on the mount of the camera. When I lift it up like this, the lens disconnects from the camera. Not entirely, it's just a small blip, but you can feel the image stabilizer cut out, the screen on the back of the camera goes black, and it is clearly losing connection with the camera. This seems like a lens mount issue, I'm going to assume, on the camera body. And it's happened within 2 months of buying this camera, which is quite worrying and does make me a little bit dubious about the longevity of the Fujifilm X mount when it comes to dealing with a long lens, which exerts a lot more pressure on the lens mount, but at the end of the day, they do sell it, so it should, not break their own cameras, in theory. Looks like a mother and her calf, perhaps. Oh, there's a line of sheep. That's quite picturesque. Yeah, we'll see about the X-H2S. I'll keep people updated about what I discover and whether there are any issues with it, whether it's been caused by the cold wind. I mean, it shouldn't. It's been fine in other situations. Or whether the lens mount is faulty, whether it's a memory card issue, which doesn't really make a huge amount of sense to me either. Oh well. Hopefully it's fixable, because aside from this, I've been enjoying this camera so far. But as I said earlier, I do have a curse when it comes to technology, which is rather ironic, being a software engineer. When it comes to what memory cards I was using a Delkin Black CF Express card, which is currently in the X-H2S, but the SD card that failed was a Lexar 1667 V60 card. And these are good because they were cheap. You get 228 gig ones for 70 quid, and in theory, you can record 360 megabit video in H.265 to these on the X-H2S. But I would probably advise against using these because of this issue that I've had. I've had no issues with the equivalent V90 cards, but the V90 cards are very expensive. A 64 gig V90 version of this is £70 itself. And that means that compared to CF Express cards, there's almost no price benefit to buying those very top-end SD cards. So I will just buy a bigger CF Express Type B card in the future, and it's got the added benefit that it's far more performant. It's just a shame that it is horrifyingly expensive. But I am very frustrated about these issues. I've only had the X-H2S for 2 months. I can deal with the performance oddities or the UI choices and things like that, but unreliability or endangering the photos I take is really quite unsatisfactory to me. I don't ask all that much of the equipment that I use. I only ask that it does what it advertises that it does. And reliability is by far and away the most important thing for me, because some of the photos I take I will never be able to take again, and I never know when I'm going to get something good. I don't stalk one type of animal for months. I just wander around and take photos as I see them, and for me, having something reliable is very important. So I'm frustrated. I hope that this was just a small blip with this camera, but I will be having to get it warranty repaired for the lens mount issue at least, and I will try and report the memory card issue to Fuji, because I do feel that the camera should handle that eventuality in a better way. It certainly shouldn't fake record stuff for multiple hours. That's very weird, and I don't really know how that could happen. But yes, overall, not a particularly great week. This has been a bit of a rant. Thank you very much for watching anyway. Please leave comments down below, commiserations, etc. And I'll see you next time.